So,
Cool,
Paul, I
man.
want to go back and I definitely want to get to some of your, I want to get to Resurrection Road, but I want to go back to the Noisy Mama album because I've been sort of revisiting it, knowing that we were going to talk to you today. And I want to give you some credit because I think it was an overlooked album. And as you alluded to earlier, to me, there's a great mix of music on here. You've got your rockers, of course. You are a rock band, but there's some other textures and flavors in here. You mentioned "Long Way Home." I thought for sure. I mean that could have been as big as any arena '80s arena power ballad of the day. "Million Miles," a little more acoustic based. Another great song. Again, you sort of reminded me, and I'm saying this for the benefit of our listeners who may not have heard of you and might want to go check you out. I hear sort
It's
of
an unsung record.
yeah,
It's unsung.
I hear the diversity of sort of like a Cinderella, a band that could rock, but also a band that could, do some piano stuff, some acoustic stuff, some very blues based stuff. So I wanted to give you some credit for not just being a one trick pony here. And people may not have heard the record, but if you're a fan of Cinderella, Great White, Tesla, bands that kind of had a foot in each sort of camp,
or even just AC/DC.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I had mentioned Johnny Crash earlier. I think that's a great example too. But it was a really well done record, and I think there's some good material on there. And so, for the benefit of our viewers and listeners who may not have heard you, I would ask them to go check it out and give it a chance. I wanted to ask you about the artwork. This artwork is done by Ed Big Daddy Roth, who's famous for creating the Rat Fink character. And if you're into hot rod culture, you know very well what the Rat Fink character is. And I think that style of art can be seen on other album covers or variations of it. I know our friend Chris Gates from Junkyard is a big fan of Rat Fink, and he's done some illustrations like this. Tell us how you got Roth involved in doing the album cover.
Well, the label, we were trying to come up with what would represent the funness of our shows, our live shows, the crazy, and somebody just one day said, remember Mad Magazine? And yeah. Boom. It's like they approached him, and he had done a few album covers. So, but the funny thing about him was, we came upon him, we approached him. He said, yeah. When they went to pay him, they sent him a check. He's like, I can't use this. What is this? I don't know what this is. Send me money. So they had to send a courier over with whatever they were paying him to do that.
Wow.
And I thought that was pretty cool. But I would never have thought, reading Mad Magazine when I was 15, 13, whatever, that there would happen like that. But that was just someone at the label that just came up with that idea, and it stuck really well.
It's a really cool album cover. I mean, obviously Roth's artwork is always great, but I love the colors. I think it represents you well. There's a female driving the hot rod, so of course the Noisy Mama name plays into it. It's really cool. I had to ask you about that because I think it's a standout album cover.
And one other thing I wanted to let you guys know, because you were talking about the diversity of some of the songs we had.
Yeah, please.
The piano playing was done by Nicky Hopkins.
Yeah, I saw that. How'd you get Nicky Hopkins involved? Now, for people who don't know the name Nicky Hopkins, of course, he's probably most famous for playing with the Stones, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I know he did some work on a Faster Pussycat record, and they were stoked to have him. So getting him is a big score. How did that happen?
I think our manager, Roger Probert, he was the guy, Englishman. He knew a lot of different people in New York, and that's how we had Mick Rock take photos of us. So we had some good connections with him, and that's kind of how that came about. But just watching him that day, I mean, I just loved being a part of it and just watching him.
Sure, yeah. I mean, you're in the room with royalty, so that's a great experience for you. What would you say was your biggest shot at glory during the Noisy Mama days? Did you go on any big arena tours opening for somebody, one of your heroes or anything? Or Did you get a magazine article that is a prized possession of yours? What would be the highlight or highlights plural of this time with Noisy Mama, 1991, after the album comes out?
Well, our tour was not a big tour. Okay, we were traveling in a van, not even a bus, and we roughed it out. I don't know if that was because of where things were heading with music or whatever, but just actually doing the video was probably the high point. Being on MTV, that says a lot right there. When I'm gone, that'll still be out there somewhere. So that's probably it for me.
Yeah. I've said this to Jason many times. It's like I'm always envious of guys who are going to leave a piece of themselves behind the day that they're gone because you've made your mark, I also wanted to ask you, I lost it now. It was something else. Dave's Brain. My name is my name is Dave, so of course that song title caught my attention.
You lost your brain there for a second, though. So where was Dave's brain?
Dave's brain is gone. That's what it is.
Dave's brain's not here, man. Yeah. So, well done, Jason.
I was just working with what I had to work with
out there. Chum in the water,
Dave.
Chum in the water, right?
Well, I will tell you right now, that was completely written about our guitar player, Dave Scott, and he had a way of Daving you. Okay, we experienced it many times. He'd say, we'd be talking about something, and he'd say, "That's like getting a gorilla, giving him a candy bar, and telling him to walk backwards."
What?
We would be like, our heads were like, bulging. Then one time he said something, and we were at his house at Brady Lake, and there was a minor earthquake right after he said it. Like you could feel the house shaking a little bit. We're like,
Whoa.
So that's how Dave Bray came out. I mean, it was like, barking it, and his, his girlfriend, they had a tumultuous life sometimes. So we kind of I just blended all that kind of stuff together with him, and that's where that came from for sure.
Tell me about Little Brown Jug. What's the inspiration behind that?
That would be living in New York City, drinking every single day. I mean, writing, drinking, writing. We hardly ever played live when we were doing that because when we got signed, only 3 of us got signed. Mm-hmm. So me and the 2 guitar players, we moved up to New York City, and our managers had an apartment up there that he had rent control. So, I think it was like $800 a month, right on 55th Street.
Wow.
And lots of, going down to Kenny's Castaways and just staying up late, drinking and writing and all that, it just started to weigh on me, and kind of came up with. And of course, Little Brown Jug is the first song you learn on guitar, right? It's one of the first ones, My Little Brown Jug or whatever it is. So I just kind of came up with that title and went with it.
So the 3 of you were on the contract and basically put the material together for this record. Who rounded out the studio band? Who, how'd you finish out your lineup in time to record, and how'd you go about that? Was it again just management and you guys?
One of the first things we did was the label put us, actually, James Kotak, God, rest in peace, and Jeff Pilson, they came in and did 3 songs with us. So we started that way. We did a demo. It kind of showed us, or at least showed me, what it's like to have a real serious rhythm section,
Oh yeah.
And then we were down at Kenny's Castaways, and our bass player Chris was playing with a band called Floating Boats. Rest in peace, Chris, too. He's gone now. But we met him. He was younger than us, but he was a crazy skateboarding ball of fire and good bass player, great bass player. So we grabbed him. So here we have him now. And then we started writing the record. And then we started trying to figure out who we were going to get on drums. And we remembered this guy named Tommy Rich, who we actually opened for Donnie Iris. He was Donnie Iris's drummer. And we remembered him from that first show that got us signed. So we gave him a call, and there it was.
Wow, I haven't heard the name Donnie Iris in a long time, but man, that guy had he was great.
He's still doing it.
Is he really? Wow.
He's 80, 81, and he's still doing it, and his voice is amazing. Yeah, he's something. He's something else. I got to hang with him just a little bit recently, and about a year ago or whatever, just to talk to him a little bit. But he's a great guy. I got to go on stage with them one night and play Minnie the Moocher on the harmonica, and that was a high point in my life too.
Wow, more power to him.
Hey man, your voice is I'm sorry to interrupt you, Dave. Your voice is great. I just wanted to tell you, you've got a really cool kind of greasy, Steven Tyler grit with, I can hear it in your speaking voice. I was wondering what your speaking voice was. Now that as soon as I heard you say hello, I was like, oh, okay. It's a natural, you've got a natural sort of timbre and as well as grit in your delivery. When did you start? I know all of this is in your bio on your website. Isn't it just paulskowron.com?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And you've been doing this such a long time. You mentioned earlier, I'll tie this in too, that you not hurt yourself, but you lost your voice there for a second, and you had to figure out how to come back and not lose it again. And I understand, it wasn't a voice doctor. It was just a coach that you went and saw, and you learned a few things about control, I'm sure. But your voice on the record, and everyone should just, at least to hear you sing rock and roll, should check out the Noisy Mama record, because it might have been your prime. I don't know.
My prime is right now, actually. I'm serious. I'm singing better now than I've ever sang in my life. I mean,
fantastic.
I'm really amazed at that. And, again, I do a project called Leadsmith, which is an Aerosmith Leadsmith band, or Aerosmith Led Zeppelin thing, just to keep my voice sharp and strong. Yeah. And I'm singing 2.5 hours of that stuff, probably 3 times, 5 times a year we do it. But yeah, I mean, right now, just having great vocal training was so much, because before that, I had no idea what I was doing. I was drinking on stage and singing Aerosmith and singing Led Zeppelin and then singing Noisy Mama or White Noise and things like, we started as a cover band, and then we got an original set together, and then we started doing our original set, and then we started adding lights, and we started adding propane flames, and we had a 4-man crew, and we built a rock show before we even got signed. And that's part of the reason I think we got a lot of attention and people come to see us, because we just had a show.
Yeah, you're based out of Youngstown, Ohio, is that right?
I live close to Youngstown. My wife and I, we moved around a lot, but we're back here, and I'm real close to the city.